ladies and gentlemen, who's all the way from Queensland, who's also an artist and a mental health advocate. Now, I spoke before about artists being aware of their politics, and Maree Robertson is no different, ladies and gentlemen. Put your hands together for Maree.
Thank you. And if we get interrupted by too much noise over there, I'm going to start singing. So don't be surprised if I break into music. I toured for a number of years with a show called Barking Mad the Musical, based on my own experience. And today, the first thing I'd like to do though, like everyone here, and it's wonderful, I acknowledge that under these steps, this land is Wurundjeri. And the second thing I'd like to do is say, I've sung and spoken in front of thousands and thousands of people all across the world, and actually I don't think I've ever been in a group of this calibre before. And what I really love is that when you're faced with fear, and I don't think I've ever shared a stage with guns before, the response is not to exclude but to include, and I'm so proud to be here because of that. So thank you everyone. Brave, brave people. And yes, I know that the most confronting thing for any of us is to stand up to a system, but actually we can tell how good a job we're doing by how scary it is for people to join us, because there's nothing more confronting to the system than have people who are labelled mad standing together. Yeah. So I'm speaking today for two reasons. Firstly, to honour the 975 plus probably a few more by now who've lost their hands at the hands of the care of the Victorian mental health system. But I'd also like to speak about a national issue that is in fact quite urgent. I want to prevent further deaths by adding my voice to the thousands of people calling on the federal government and asking people to inform themselves and each other, because it's really being swept under the carpet, about the cuts to the Better Access program and the moratorium that we're calling for. So if you don't know about this, I'm one of the thousands of people who will be directly and critically affected by these cuts. The program started in 2006 and it set up a situation where people were able to go out Medicare rebate to see a non-psychiatrist therapist for up to 18 sessions a year if they're in extreme distress. From this Tuesday, 2 days from now, the maximum number of those sessions is going to be cut to 10 per year. That's less than one a month. Now, to explain why this matters, I'm going to tell you a bit of my story. I'm 47 years old and I've suffered from mental health issues due to early childhood trauma my whole life. I worked as best I was able for 20 years, but in '99 I had to stop work due to panic attacks and regular suicidal thoughts. I've been on the disability pension since 2002 and I've sought multiple forms of assistance since then, including seeing a good few psychiatrists that did much more harm than good. And in 2008 I found a rare as hen's teeth psychiatrist who was decent, but still I was really marking time. Then in February, through the Better Access program, I started seeing a very sharp and sensitive psychologist, and since I've been working with him I've made more progress in the last 8 months than in the last 28 years. I know lots of you share much harder and darker stories than me, and I really honour and respect that, but I suppose where I feel like I'm sitting is like in the middle of the river and a bit further upstream, but actually we're still all being left to drown at this point, yeah? So I started doing volunteer work again and singing, and I was thinking I was back on track and being able to work. I've had about 12 visits once a fortnight, which, you know, we all know is about what you need to do to keep steady progress. And now, because of the funding cuts that happened on Tuesday, I can't go back till January. So there's basically 2 months from this Tuesday where all the people, thousands and thousands of people who are getting help through this system are going to have no support till January, which is just, you know, and of course, the federal government is selling the big, lovely, hard sell about all the increases to mental health funding, very glossy and glamorous, and no one's saying that it's because they've cut millions and millions of dollars by reducing these sessions. Now, what's more absurd is that there's been a report, the Senate Committee of Inquiry into this very program, and guess when it's handing down its report? After over 2,000 submissions, 10,000 signatures. It's handing down its report on the same day that the cuts are implemented. So that's very clever, right? So we're really going to have a chance to hear what people have said about what's appropriate. Now, 10 sessions a year flies in the face of all research about how therapy works. We know that. For most of us, it can take that many sessions just to learn to trust someone if we've been treated badly by the system. And of course, most of us have. Then there's this incredibly circular argument that just defies logic. They're saying that the reason they're cutting the sessions is because 85% of people, sorry, it's a statistic, but follow me, people, 85% of people use less than 6 sessions, 6 or less. So they're cutting the extra sessions for the 15% of people who need more than 12. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So they're actually just going, oh, well, we'll just shove everybody through the system and you can all eke out your little bits of support. Now, the other thing that really got me fired up and why I've flown to Melbourne to speak at this, because I knew you'd be the right people to spread the word as big as you can. I've then read in the reports that actually part of the program was being cut is because they're saying that it's being used by what they're calling the worried well, right? And they're people who supposedly live in affluent suburbs and they see therapists who are in affluent suburbs. Now, I guess I'm one of those people because here's my situation. I was an employed tax-paying citizen until I was knocked over by extreme mental health issues that I needed to address urgently, or I knew that I'd end up dead. I struggled with those suicidal feelings for years, and every single day it's still a struggle about holding on, sometimes for one more day. And I'm sure that lots of you understand that feeling. I've worked harder on this than I can express in words, and during this time I've seen many, many amazingly worthy people fall under that bus. I personally want to remember and acknowledge my friend Leonard, and I know that every single one of you will remember someone who's been there. Anyway, for me, I managed to claw my way back from homelessness to live in a reasonably independent life. And I live in one of those affluent suburbs because I'm in a granny flat. So I can have some control over my living environment. I pay half my pension on rent. Before that, I lived in a state of permanent fear and often violation and narrowly escaped being raped. And I wonder if they're the living conditions that I'm supposed to stay in order to be obviously worthy of support. Now, my therapist also works in an affluent suburb. It takes me 2 hours to get to him, but I go to him because he's good at his job. He rents his office there because that's where the office accommodation is. I imagine that there's not a lot of office accommodation in some of the poorer parts of any city. It seems bizarre to me that that's a rationale for saying that therefore the people that go to see him don't really need help. Anyway, they've used this kind of logic, and it makes me actually wonder if there is in fact a new strategy to actually quite intentionally abandon those of us who are already halfway downstream and on the verge of drowning. And truthfully, that does feel to me like a form of selective genocide. And I know that that's a really extreme word, but actually it's honestly how I feel. It's me about these cuts. We are all furiously bailing our own little buckets and working together to try and achieve a moratorium on these cuts, at least until after the Senate report's been properly addressed. And my little bucket's worth is to do everything I can to inform people about the disgusting way that the federal government is full of self-congratulation and taking money away. So for those of you, I'm not exaggerating to say I fear there'll be some who might make it to be alive by next January. And what I believe, this was called Light 1,000 Candles last month. I'm scared that actually some more of those people are going to come because of this gap in the system. And so to make sure I'm not one of them, I'm planning to divert myself into agitation, like I'm doing here. And I'd like to ask all of us, I think we should all swap all our information before we leave here. And if you want to find out more about Better Access, you can look it up on Facebook or the web. Thank you.
Very rare do we get such good speakers.
We are Indigenous. We are child migrants. And we are just us. We had a reunion yesterday for a group of us who were placed in what they call an adolescent... Well, we call it Winnie. It was formerly Win Leighton. It was for adolescent criminals, basically. I never went to court. I was placed there. And we were expecting 90 people to turn up. We were lucky if we had 40 because of the fears that they had coming back. I spoke to one lady yesterday. She threw up before she got there. Her husband says, well, we'll just turn around and go home. And she said no. I had another friend who decided that she wasn't even going to come, but she did show up and she did have a good time. I'm very proud of the fact that she turned up with her history regarding the abuse that she has suffered. Another friend turned up. She was placed when she was 9 years old. Now, when Leighton was supposed to be for adolescents, she tried to commit suicide 3 times, so they put her in Mont Park mental institution at the age of 9 years. To me, that is not fair. It wasn't her fault, she was placed in there. But as usual, the government doesn't really give a stuff about us. So we're trying to get redress. Now, I have no hope of getting redress, and I don't care. I will do it for all my brothers and sisters because they were the ones who suffered abuse. Me, I can't remember, and that's fine with me. So I'm not asking for redress, but I will ask for all my brothers and sisters. I think that's about it.
That's pretty good.
I mean, we could go into the foster care system, and that really sucked too.
Go you, Tim.
I have a friend, I call her my sister. We are not blood related in any way, but she is my sister. She was raised in foster care by a so-called affluent family because he was a JP. She was taken to Bali and sold to Balinese men. The government allowed it to happen. By not only these men who she was sold to, but also her foster father. She has taken him to court once when she was 19, and because she took him to court, she can now do it again. But the foster care system sucks. Thank you all.
Thanks very much, Jen. Put your hands together, Jenny. Come on. She's going to sleep or what? We are coming to our close session today, ladies and gentlemen. And I guess Jake's going to do a closing song for us. You want to get ready for that, bros? And we do have one more speaker left. And this fella's all the way from Brunswick. Can you put your hands together for Khepa Markhno? Hang on.
That's all good. Wait. Go up. Yeah, I also like to acknowledge that we're standing on Wurundjeri land, and everywhere we step on this island we call Australia now, it's all Aboriginal land. You know, I just like to say, I get blown away by the stories I hear, these protests, these awareness raises. These stories are harrowing, yeah, but they are stories of hope and survival, and I love that. But like Greg said, there's 975 people in the last 4 years whose stories we're not going to get to hear. They've been murdered by the state, and this is a state crime. These stories are never going to get told, and this is a crime. And so, while I think it's important we fight for a state commission, it's not enough. This world's upside down, and the state is part of the problem. Like the amazing radical German group from the 70s, the Socialist Patients Collective said, it's capitalism that causes mental illness, so we can't rely on them for a solution. So, what we need to do is start care. We all know this. We have to care more, we have to share more, we have to listen to each other, we have to nurture each other. And as part of that process, I think the occupation movement in Melbourne is a great thing. Everyone there is welcome. All vulnerable people are welcome. All outsiders, all people on the edges are welcome there. So I'd just like to invite everyone, like Omar, like Sue, like Greg has done, to come down there. It's a safe space. Well, we want it to be a safe space, but where is a safe space in Baoyu State? There isn't one. Anyhow, yeah, shame. Anyhow, that's all I wanted to say, people. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much, Khepa.